I watched through my boutique's window as Sarah Winters clip-clopped down the cobblestone street of Oak Grove Shopping District in her red-soled Louboutins, the same ones Michael used to buy me before he decided to trade up. Her perfectly highlighted hair bounced as she gestured to my store, entertaining her lunch companions with what I'm sure was another colorful commentary about my adorable little attempt at retail. Did you know, her voice carried through the open door, that she actually thinks she can compete with real luxury brands? It's sweet, really, like watching a child play store. Her friends tittered obligingly. They all owed their social standing to Sarah, who'd appointed herself queen of Oak Grove's elite after marrying my ex-husband. Mrs. Chen, my assistant Emma, appeared at my elbow. The final contracts just arrived from the lawyers. I smiled, watching Sarah press her manicured hands against the window of channel next door. Perfect timing. Is everything in order? Yes. As of midnight, you'll officially own every property in Oak Grove Shopping District, even the parking structures. Sarah's group was moving closer to my entrance. I could practically smell the expensive perfume she'd bathed in, the same brand she'd once helpfully suggested I try, since my discount store scents were probably driving away high-end customers. The bell above my door chimed, showtime. Ladies, I greeted them pleasantly from behind the counter of my admittedly modest boutique. Welcome to Chen Designs. Oh, Lucy. Sarah's smile was pure venom wrapped in $1,000 dental work. We were just discussing your unique business model. It's so brave of you to keep trying after all these years. I adjusted the display of handcrafted jewelry, pieces that actually cost more than her entire outfit, though she'd never bothered to check the prices. How's the new collection at Channel? I heard they're having some lease issues. Sarah's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Lease issues? Don't be ridiculous. This is Oak Grove. We only host the finest establishments. Hosted, I corrected gently. I'm sorry. Past tense, things are changing around here. I moved to straighten a rack of designer dresses, exclusive pieces Sarah had always dismissed as knockoffs. What would you know about it? She scoffed. You can barely afford the rent on this. She waved her hand dismissively. Charming little space. Emma appeared with a stack of envelopes. The novices are ready to be delivered, Mrs. Chen. Would you like me to handle the other boutiques first, or start with the anchor stores? Sarah's friends shifted uncomfortably. They'd learned to read the wind in their social circle, and something was definitely changing in the air. What novices? Sarah demanded. Just some updates to the lease agreements, I said casually. Standard procedure when there's new ownership. The color drained slightly from Sarah's spray-tanned face. New ownership. I pulled out my tablet, making a show of checking the details I'd memorized weeks ago. Chen Holdings completed the acquisition of Oak Grove properties this morning. We'll be making some changes to the tenant mix, creating a more authentic luxury experience. Chen Holdings. Sarah's voice rose an octave. But that's the company that's been buying up all the high-end retail space in the city. Amazing what one can build while others are busy shopping, I mused. By the way, how's Michael's new investment firm doing? I heard the SEC is asking some interesting questions. Sarah's friend suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere, leaving their queen bee swaying slightly in her expensive heels. This is impossible, she declared. Michael would have known if you were. If I was what, Sarah? Successful? Running a multinational corporation? Too busy building an empire to play society wife. I leaned against my counter. Michael never did bother to read the fine print on our divorce settlement or his company's loan agreements. The blood drained completely from her face. Loan agreements? Oh yes. Chen Holdings now owns a controlling interest in Winter's investment group. Amazing what people will sell when they're trying to cover up financial irregularities. I examined my simple wedding band, the one Michael had replaced with Sarah's flashier model. You might want to check your joint accounts. You're lying, she whispered. Emma handed me another document. The auditor's report you requested, Mrs. Chen. They finished their preliminary review of Winter's investment group. Thank you, Emma. Please make sure Mrs. Winters gets a copy. I'm sure she'll find page 17 particularly interesting. It details her husband's creative accounting regarding their lifestyle expenses. Sarah grabbed the document, her perfectly manicured nails trembling. This is some kind of trick. No trick. Just good business. I moved to adjust a window display. By the way, your channel account, the one Michael's been funding with company money, it's been frozen, along with all the other store cards. The security tag on her designer dress suddenly seemed very conspicuous. You can't do this, she hissed. Actually, I can, and I have. I smiled pleasantly. Don't worry about your lease here, though. I'm sure we can work something out. Maybe a nice discount retail space. Something more authentic. The door chimed again as more customers entered, real customers who appreciated quality over labels. This isn't over, Sarah threatened, but her voice lacked its usual authority. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning. Oh, and Sarah, I called as she turned to leave. Those Louboutins, they're knockoffs. Michael's been buying from counterfeiters to cover his tracks. Might want to check your closet before the authenticity audit next week. She fled, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive perfume and desperation. Emma approached with another stack of papers. Should I start delivering the lease revisions? Not yet. I watched Sarah's retreating figure through the window. Let's give her time to share the news with her social circle. After all, I smiled, remembering all the times she paraded through my little shop with her friends. Word of mouth is the best advertising. And in Oak Grove shopping district, word was about to spread very fast indeed. The queen was about to learn she'd been playing in someone else's kingdom all along. The next morning, Oak Grove was buzzing with whispers. Sarah's perfectly curated social media had gone mysteriously quiet, and her usual morning coffee clique at the premium patisserie was notably absent. Instead, she was huddled in a corner of my boutique, clutching a designer bag that may or may not have been authentic. Please, he whispered, glancing nervously at other customers. You have to help me. Michael, he's frozen all our accounts. How uncomfortable for you. I continued arranging a display of handcrafted scarves. Almost as uncomfortable as when you told everyone I couldn't afford to shop in real stores anymore. I was wrong, okay? I admit it. But this isn't just about me. The charity gala is next week. I'm the chairwoman. Was the chairwoman, I corrected. Chen Holdings owns the venue. We'll be appointing new leadership. The bell chimed as Elizabeth Porter, Sarah's right hand in social warfare, rushed in, her face flushed. Sarah, is it true? They're closing Valentino. I smiled. Not closing, just reorganizing. We're creating space for more independent designers. Quality over labels, you might say. But where will we shop? Elizabeth's voice cracked with genuine distress. There's always my little boutique, I offered innocently, though I should mention our prices are going up. Exclusive designs don't come cheap. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You're enjoying this. Almost as much as you enjoy telling everyone how Michael upgraded when he left me. I moved to the register as a customer approached with one of my designer pieces. That'll be $3,800. Sarah's jaw dropped as the woman handed over her card without hesitation. $3,000. For a one-of-a-kind piece, it's quite reasonable. I wrapped the purchase in tissue paper, unlike, say, charging $5,000 for counterfeit merchandise. Elizabeth gasped. The audit rumors are true. Oh yes. I handed the customer her bag. The SEC is very interested in how many authentic luxury items have been flowing through Oak Grove lately, particularly through certain investment firms. Sarah grabbed my arm as I passed. You can't expose this. It will ruin us. Like you tried to ruin me? I gently removed her hand. Besides, I'm just doing my civic duty. Chen Holdings has a responsibility to our shareholders to maintain the district's reputation. Your shareholders? Elizabeth's eyes widened. But you're just a what? I turned to her. A shopkeeper? A divorced woman who couldn't keep her man? Or maybe a savvy businesswoman who built an empire while you were all busy judging her? Emma appeared with a tablet. The auditors are ready to begin at Winter's Investment Group. Should I tell them about the hidden vault in Mr. Winter's office? Sarah's perfect composure cracked. Hidden vault. Where Michael keeps the real books, I explained. Along with some very interesting photographs. You might want to ask him about his business trips to Vegas. Elizabeth was already edging toward the door, no doubt eager to spread the latest scandal. Sarah grabbed her arm. Wait, don't you dare. Social hierarchy crumbling already, I mused. Amazing how quickly friends disappear when the credit cards stop working. I'll tell everyone what you're doing, Sarah threatened. How you're destroying small businesses. You mean like you tried to destroy mine? I gestured around my boutique. I built this place from nothing while you were busy playing Queen Bee. The difference is, I actually own everything I have. The door chimed again. Michael's assistant hurried in, looking panicked. Mrs. Winters. Mr. Winters needs you at the office immediately. The SEC agents. Are right on schedule, I finished. You might want to hurry, Sarah. I hear handcuffs clash with Hermes bracelets. She fled, leaving Elizabeth behind. The social butterfly turned to me uncertainly. Lucy, about all those things I said. Save it. I held up a hand. Your store credit here is also suspended. Authentic relationships only from now on. As they all scattered, Emma brought over the morning reports. The news about the counterfeit merchandise is spreading. Several society wives are trying to return their purchases. Too late for that. I checked the security feeds showing the chaos unfolding throughout the district. The SEC has already documented everything. Amazing what people will reveal when they're afraid of losing their status. Mrs. Chen. A timid voice called from the doorway. It was Michael's secretary. Mr. Winters would like to schedule a meeting. Tell him to contact our legal department. I turned back to my display. I'm too busy running my little shop to deal with soon-to-be indicted investment bankers. As the morning wore on, I watched through my window as Sarah's carefully constructed world continued to unravel. Her social media followers were already jumping ship, her charity board was calling for her resignation, and her beloved luxury boutiques were closing one by one for inventory audit. Emma brought me a coffee from my own high-end roastery next door, not the overpriced cafe Sarah had banned me from. The property management office is being flooded with calls. Everyone wants to know if their lease is safe. Tell them all leases will be reviewed based on authenticity of both merchandise and character. I sipped my coffee. Some people might need to find a more suitable shopping district, perhaps somewhere that appreciates knockoffs as much as they do. Outside, Sarah was having a very public meltdown as security escorted her from the Gucci store. Her social media empire was crumbling faster than her makeup. Should we call security? Emma asked. No need. I watched as Sarah's former friends hurried past, pretending not to see her. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting karma do its work. After all, Sarah had taught me so much about social climbing. It seemed only fair to teach her about falling. 1 month later, I sat in my newly renovated office overlooking Oak Grove Shopping District, watching the transformation below. Gone were the gaudy displays of conspicuous consumption, replaced by carefully curated boutiques that valued authenticity over labels. The morning sun glinted off new storefront signs, each one bearing the subtle Chen Holdings logo. Mrs. Chen. Emma entered with the morning briefing. The Wall Street Journal piece just dropped. From boutique owner to retail empire, the silent queen of luxury real estate. I smiled, remembering Sarah's face when the reporters had approached her for comment about the counterfeit scandal. She'd been leaving the courthouse after Michael's arraignment, clutching a knockoff bag that had suddenly become evidence. Also, Emma continued, the new Tenants Association wants to know if you'll speak at their first meeting. They're particularly interested in your journey from small business owner to district developer. Tell them I'll be there. I turned from the window. In my little shop, of course. The boutique that Sarah had mocked now anchored the district's most prestigious corner. Its success had become a symbol of authentic luxury, attracting customers who appreciated quality over status. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My phone buzzed with a text from Elizabeth. Please reconsider my lease application. I've learned my lesson. Have you? I typed back. Or did you just learn which side of the power dynamic to stand on? The district's social landscape had shifted dramatically. The former queens of Oak Grove now found themselves scrambling for relevance in a world where actual value mattered more than perceived status. Sarah's infamous coffee clique had disbanded, its members suddenly discovering the quality of my boutique's private lounge. The SEC called, Emma reported. They want to thank you for your cooperation in the counterfeit investigation. Apparently, Mrs. Winters is now offering to testify against her husband. Loyalty was never her strong suit, I mused, remembering how quickly she'd moved in on Michael during our marriage. Send them the rest of the documentation. Let's make sure this story has a properly authentic ending. Through the window, I spotted Sarah hurrying past in last season's clothes, her head down. She'd taken a job at a discount store across town, the kind of place she used to mock. Karma had a peculiar sense of humor. "Your 10 o'clock is here," Emma announced, the Vogue reporter for the Women in Business feature. I straightened my designer dress, one of my own creations, now commanding prices that made Sarah's former shopping sprees look modest. "Send her up, and Emma, make sure she sees the original business plan for my little shop." The one Sarah used to claim was beneath Oak Grove's standards. The plan, now framed on my wall, had mapped out every step of this takeover. While Sarah had been building her social empire on borrowed luxury, I'd been quietly building a real one. My phone buzzed again. Michael's lawyer with another settlement offer. I declined without reading it. Some debts couldn't be paid with money. "Mrs. Chen," a young boutique owner, appeared at my door. "I just wanted to thank you for the mentorship program. It's helping so many of us who felt intimidated by the old guard." I gestured for her to enter. The old guard forgot something important. True luxury isn't about excluding people, it's about elevating them. She nodded eagerly. "That's why we've all agreed to rename the shopping district. The board voted this morning. We'd like to call it Chen Grove." I thought about Sarah, who had once claimed this territory as her personal kingdom. Now her name was being erased from the very society she'd ruled. Keep the old name, I decided. Oak Grove should remind everyone that growth comes from strong roots, not shallow appearances. As the young woman left, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out an old photo, me at my boutique's opening, with Michael and Sarah in the background, laughing at what they thought was a doomed venture. Emma appeared one last time. Final property report. Chen Holdings now owns 100% of the luxury retail space in 3 adjacent districts. Perfect. I put the photo away. Send out the new lease terms. Let's see who's really committed to authentic luxury. Outside, Oak Grove was coming alive with morning shoppers. But now they walked past windows displaying genuine craftsmanship instead of counterfeit status symbols. Sarah had wanted to be retail royalty. Instead, she'd helped crown a queen she never saw coming. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building something so magnificent that they destroy themselves trying to compete. And my little shop? It was just the foundation of an empire built on everything Sarah thought didn't matter. I stood in the marble foyer of the Wellington Club, admiring how the crystal chandeliers caught the morning light. 2 years ago, Caroline had orchestrated my humiliating rejection from this very spot, making sure every society matron witnessed my escort out by security. Today, I was here for a different kind of escort. "Ms. Reynolds?" The club's manager, Harrison, approached nervously. "The board is assembled in the main dining room," though Mrs. Harrison Peters insisted on waiting for her husband. "Caroline can insist all she wants," I smiled, smoothing my Chanel suit. "The emergency board meeting starts now." I could hear Caroline's voice carrying from the dining room, probably regaling her minions with another story about how I tried to buy my way into their precious social circle after David left me for her. "I mean, really," she was saying as I entered, "some people just don't understand that certain things can't be purchased. Breeding, for instance." "How fascinating," I interrupted. "We'll have to discuss purchasing power later. Right now, we have more pressing matters." Caroline's perfectly highlighted head snapped up. "You can't be in here. This is a private meeting." Actually, I took my place at the head of the table. I called this meeting, as majority shareholder of Wellington Club Holdings. The room went silent. Caroline's champagne glass froze halfway to her surgically enhanced lips. "Impossible," she declared. "The club's shares are held by founding families only." "Were held," I corrected, nodding to my assistant Amy, who began distributing folders. Amazing what people will sell when their hedge funds collapse. Speaking of which, how is David's fund doing? I heard the SEC has some questions. Caroline's face flushed beneath her expensive foundation. "Whatever game you're playing." "This isn't a game." I opened my folder. First item on the agenda, membership review, particularly cases of discrimination and improper application processing. "You can't do this." Caroline stood, her designer dress rustling. "My husband is currently trying to explain to federal investigators why client funds were used to maintain your lifestyle." I smiled pleasantly. "He won't be making any board meetings for a while." The other board members shifted uncomfortably. They'd all followed Caroline's lead in blackballing me, convinced her social influence was untouchable. Now then, I continued, let's discuss the 12 times my membership application was lost, along with applications from other successful women who didn't meet Caroline's aesthetic requirements. Those applications didn't meet our standards, Caroline snapped. Your standards? I raised an eyebrow. Like the standard that let in 3 women currently under investigation for charity fraud? Or the standard that approved memberships for those involved in David's pyramid scheme? Amy distributed another set of documents, the full audit of membership approvals over the past 2 years, along with corresponding financial irregularities. Caroline's social circle began to fracture visibly. Her closest allies suddenly found the crystal chandelier fascinating, while others edged their chairs away from her. This is revenge, she accused, because David chose me. Chose you? I laughed softly. Caroline, David didn't choose you. He chose the image you projected, the same image that's about to shatter along with your social standing. You can't touch me, she declared. I am the heart of this club. Actually, I gestured to Amy, who unveiled a large presentation board, here about to be its cautionary tale. These are the new membership guidelines, merit-based, transparent, and most importantly, I paused for effect, free from any single person's influence. The board members leaned forward, suddenly interested. They'd all suffered under Caroline's arbitrary social rules. Furthermore, I continued, the club will be opening its doors to a more diverse membership. Women in technology, arts, philanthropy. You're destroying everything we stand for. Caroline's voice rose hysterically. No, I'm restoring what this club was meant to be, a gathering place for genuine social and intellectual exchange, not a weapon for your personal vendettas. I nodded to Harrison. Please escort Mrs. Harrison Peters out. Her membership has been suspended pending review. You can't. Caroline sputtered. I can, and I am. Oh, and Caroline? I called as security approached. That Hermes bag you're clutching. It's a counterfeit, another item for the SEC to discuss with David. As Caroline was led out, her perfectly maintained facade cracking, I turned back to the board. Now, shall we discuss the club's new direction? I believe it's time for some authentic leadership. The room erupted in eager agreements, amazing how quickly loyalty shifts when the power dynamic changes. Amy leaned in to whisper, David's lawyer is calling. He wants to discuss a deal. Tell him I'm busy renovating his wife's social kingdom. I surveyed the room, my room now. Some things really can't be purchased. Caroline was right about that. Respect, integrity, true social influence. Those have to be earned. And I'd earn every bit of my revenge, one share at a time. The Wellington Club was about to learn what real power looked like, and it had nothing to do with who you married or what circles you moved in. It was about who owned the circle itself. Let Caroline chew on that during her permanent exile from the social scene she thought she ruled. After all, she taught me so much about exclusion. It was only fair to return the lesson. The Wellington Club's transformation sent shockwaves through the city's social scene. Within a week, Caroline's carefully curated Instagram feed of club lunches and charity galas went dark, replaced by frantic damage control as news of David's indictment spread through the society pages she used to dominate. The membership applications are flooding in, Amy reported, setting down a thick stack of folders. Particularly from the women Caroline previously rejected. That Nobel laureate she called too academic is especially interested. I smiled, remembering Caroline's infamous comment about how real ladies don't discuss physics at lunch. Priority approval for all the women she blacklisted. Let's show them what genuine social inclusion looks like. Through the club's floor-to-ceiling windows, I watched Caroline's former court scrambling to realign themselves. The same women who'd followed her lead in shunning me were now sending elaborate flower arrangements to my office, their cards full of gushing apologies and requests for private meetings. Mrs. Harrison Peters is here, Harrison announced, looking uncomfortable. She's demanding to speak with you. In the main dining room, I decided, where everyone can watch. Caroline stormed in, her designer outfit slightly less pristine than usual. Amazing how quickly style suffers when your husband's assets are frozen. You've destroyed everything, she hissed, dropping into the chair across from me. Do you have any idea what you've done? Actually, I do. I gestured to the bustling room around us. I've restored the Wellington Club to its original purpose, A place where accomplished people can gather without artificial barriers. Accomplished? She scoffed. That tech entrepreneur you admitted wears off-the-rack suits and runs $1 billion company, unlike someone who runs nothing but other people's credit cards into the ground. Caroline flinched. David will fix this once the investigation shows how you use club charity funds for personal shopping. I finished. That should be an interesting society page headline. You're enjoying this, she accused. Almost as much as you enjoyed having security escort me out 2 years ago. I sipped my tea. How does it feel being on the other side of social humiliation? The room had gone quietly attentive, everyone pretending not to eavesdrop while catching every word. I'll start my own club, Caroline declared, with people who understand proper social order. With what money? I asked mildly. The SEC has frozen everything, including your personal accounts. Something about suspicious transfers from the club's charity foundation. Her perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. Those transfers were approved. By you. After you forged David's signature. Another interesting detail for the investigators. Amy appeared with more documents. The full audit of the charity foundation as requested. Should I forward copies to the board? And the SEC, I added. They're particularly interested in those fashion show fundraisers that never actually raised funds for anyone but Caroline's closet. Caroline's hand shook as she reached for her water glass. What do you want? To humiliate me? No, Caroline. I want to thank you. I leaned forward. You taught me that social power isn't about who you know or what you wear. It's about who you are when everything else is stripped away. Is that what this is? Some kind of moral lesson? Consider it a hostile takeover of your social empire. I gestured to the room. Everything you valued, the status, the influence, the power to exclude others, I now control, and I'm using it to build something better. Through the windows, I could see new members arriving, brilliant women Caroline had deemed unworthy of her circle. Their achievements made her social machinations look like child's play. The board meeting is in an hour, Annie reminded me. Perfect timing. We're voting on the new charity leadership. I smiled at Caroline. Don't worry, we'll find someone who actually understands the difference between fundraising and personal shopping. Caroline stood abruptly. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Your membership has been permanently revoked. And unlike you, I keep excellent records of why. As she turned to leave, I called after her. Oh, and Caroline? The Wellington Club's dress code now includes off-the-rack suits. Quality isn't about the label. It's about the person wearing it. She fled, leaving behind only the fading echo of her designer heels and the whispers of her former social circle. The new membership committee is ready, Amy reported. They're especially excited about the mentorship program for young professional women. I surveyed what was now my domain, not just the physical space, but the social power Caroline had wielded so carelessly. Tell them we're not just changing membership rules. We're changing the entire concept of what social influence means in this city. Outside, Caroline's former allies were already adapting to the new order, discovering that real accomplishments trumped social games. The Wellington Club was becoming what it should have been all along. A place where success was measured by merit, not marriage. Should we issue a statement about Mrs. Harrison Peters? Amy asked. No need. I watched as Caroline's car disappeared down the drive. Let her figure out what real social exile feels like. After all, I smiled, remembering her famous quote about me, some people need to learn their proper place in society. And Caroline was about to learn hers, somewhere very, very far from the Wellington Club's newly polished halls. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just taking someone's power. It's using that power to build something they could never imagine. Welcome to the new social order, Caroline. Hope you enjoy watching from the outside. 6 months later, I sat in the Wellington Club's renovated ballroom, watching the city's most accomplished women gather for our first annual Women in Leadership Gala. The irony wasn't lost on me that this was the same room where Caroline had once held her infamous fashion and fertility luncheons. The Times wants to do a feature, Amy murmured, sliding a newspaper across my table. They're calling it the Wellington Revolution. How one woman transformed a social club into a power network. I glanced at the society pages Caroline used to rule. Now, instead of photos of her charity fashion shows, there were articles about the club's new initiatives. A startup incubator for women entrepreneurs, mentorship programs, and genuine philanthropic efforts that actually helped people instead of just funding designer wardrobes. Have you seen this? The tech entrepreneur Caroline had mocked for her off-the-rack suits approached, holding up her phone. Caroline's trying to start a rival club in the suburbs. How's that working out? I asked, already knowing the answer. 3 people showed up to her first meeting. At Starbucks, she laughed. Apparently, her only remaining allies are the ones also under SEC investigation. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see new members arriving. CEOs, scientists, artists, and philanthropists who would have never passed Caroline's proper society standards. The club's waiting list now included Nobel laureates and self-made billionaires, while Caroline struggled to get a reservation at chain restaurants. Mrs. Reynolds? Harrison appeared. Mrs. Harrison Peters is outside. Again, she's demanding to speak with you about David's case. Tell her to contact our lawyers. I turned back to the gala. And Harrison? Make sure she understands that the restraining order includes the parking lot. Caroline's descent had been spectacular. After David's conviction for fraud, she tried to maintain her social position through increasingly desperate means. Last week, she'd been caught trying to sneak into the club through the service entrance, the same one she'd once forced others to use. The Charity Foundation audit is complete, Amy reported. Would you like to hear how much Caroline actually diverted to personal expenses? Save it for the SEC. I stood to address the room. Ladies, welcome to the new Wellington Club. The ballroom fell silent, these powerful women giving me the same attention they gave to corporate boards and university lectures. 2 years ago, I was told I didn't belong here. I continued. That some things, breeding, class, social standing, couldn't be purchased. They were right about one thing. True worth can't be bought. It has to be earned. I saw some of Caroline's former allies shift uncomfortably in their seats, remembering their role in my exclusion. But real power isn't about excluding others. It's about lifting them up. That's why the Wellington Club is now what it should have always been. A place where achievement matters more than ancestry, where innovation outweighs inheritance, and where the only social currency that matters is what you contribute to society. Applause erupted, drowning out the faint sound of Caroline's Mercedes being turned away at the gate one last time. To new beginnings, I raised my glass. And to remembering that the best revenge isn't just succeeding. It's succeeding so spectacularly that your enemies become cautionary tales. Later, as I watched these accomplished women networking and forming genuine connections, Amy handed me an envelope. Caroline's final appeal to the board. She's offering to publicly apologize in exchange for reinstatement. I dropped it unopened into the shredder. Some things really can't be purchased, like my forgiveness. Through the window, I could see the club's new sign illuminated against the evening sky. Below it, a smaller plaque read, "Success is the best revenge, but karma needs a proper venue." Caroline had taught me about social power. Now she was learning about powerlessness. And the Wellington Club, it was finally becoming what money alone could never buy, a true testament to female achievement and solidarity. Sometimes the best way to deal with social climbers is to own the entire ladder and watch them fall one rung at a time. Welcome to the real elite circle, ladies. I sat in my modest office, reviewing the latest acquisition reports when a text from my daughter, Lily, arrived. Can't make dinner tonight. Going to the Hamptons with Dad and Victoria. Sorry. The accompanying photo showed my 16-year-old daughter lounging on a yacht, Victoria Shaw's perfectly manicured hand visible in the frame, dripping with diamonds that my company's profits had indirectly funded. Of course, sweetheart. Have fun, I typed back, even as my other phone, my business line, lit up with an urgent message from my CFO about the Shaw Real Estate Group's latest loan request. 3 years ago, when my ex-husband Mark married Victoria, I made a choice. I could have revealed myself as the founder and CEO of Morgan Capital Partners, the silent force behind half of Manhattan's luxury development. Instead, I maintained my cover as a mid-level investment advisor, watching from the shadows as Victoria systematically tried to erase our embarrassing past from Lily's life. Ms. Morgan? My assistant Sandra appeared at my door. The Shaw Group is requesting an emergency meeting. Apparently, there's an issue with their financing for the River Heights project. I smiled, remembering Victoria's social media post from yesterday, breaking ground on our biggest luxury development yet. Hashtag blessed life, hashtag real estate empire. Tell them I can meet tomorrow. I start gathering my files. And Sandra, make it early. I hear Mrs. Shaw has a busy social calendar. The next morning, I arrived at my downtown office through the private entrance, dressed in my carefully cultivated working mom attire, sensible shoes, off-the-rack suit, minimal jewelry. The security guard nodded knowingly as I passed. Victoria's voice carried down the hallway before I saw her. This is ridiculous. Do you know who my husband is? I entered the conference room to find Victoria and Mark facing my senior management team. Victoria's designer outfit probably cost more than what she thought I made in a month. Olivia? Mark's surprise at seeing me was genuine. What are you doing here? She's one of our investment advisors, my CFO explained smoothly, following the long-established protocol. She'll be sitting in on this meeting. Victoria's perfectly styled hair swished as she turned to dismiss me. We need to speak with someone in actual authority. The Morgan Group is threatening to pull our funding. Actually, I sat down calmly. We're discussing restructuring your loan terms. Your recent expenditures have exceeded the agreed-upon parameters. Excuse me? Victoria's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Our personal expenses are none of your concern. I opened my laptop, pulling up their financial records. When those expenses affect the project's viability, they become our concern. For instance, the new yacht purchased last month. That was a business investment, Mark interjected quickly, for client entertainment. And the $3 million in jewelry purchases? I asked mildly. The new summer house? The private jet membership? Victoria's face flushed. I don't have to justify my spending to someone like you. Someone like me. I kept my voice neutral, even as I saw Mark wince at his wife's tone. You know what I mean, Victoria waved her hand dismissively. I saw you at Lily's school function last week, in that same tired blazer. Clearly, you can't understand the requirements of our lifestyle. I thought of Lily's recent comments about my embarrassing car and basic apartment. Victoria's influence had been thorough. Perhaps we should focus on the business at hand, I suggested. Your construction loans are coming due, and your luxury condo sales aren't meeting projections. The market is temporarily soft, Mark argued, but I could see the worry in his eyes. We just need an extension. The Morgan Group has been very generous, I noted, but we require certain assurances. Victoria stood up, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor. This is absurd. I'm calling Caroline Morgan directly. We've never even met her, but surely the actual CEO will understand. Mrs. Shaw, my CFO, interrupted. Ms. Morgan doesn't take unscheduled calls. Then schedule one. I won't have my development plans derailed by some mid-level nobody. I closed my laptop slowly, thinking of all the times I'd heard Victoria use that word, nobody, to describe me to my daughter. How Lily had slowly started echoing her stepmother's attitudes, becoming embarrassed by our Sunday dinners at local diners and movie nights in our cozy apartment. The meeting with Caroline Morgan can be arranged, I said quietly. But first, you might want to review your company's ownership structure more carefully. What's that supposed to mean? Mark asked, his expression suddenly uncertain. I stood up, straightening my tired blazer. It means, Mark, that someone should have taught your wife about the dangers of underestimating people based on appearances. Victoria's perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing unease. Are you threatening us? Not at all, I smiled. I'm simply suggesting that tomorrow's meeting with the CEO might be more illuminating than you expect. As they left the conference room, I heard Victoria hissing at Mark. This is humiliating. Being lectured about money by someone who probably shops at Target. Little did she know, I owned significant shares in Target too. But that revelation could wait for tomorrow's meeting. After all, the best lessons in humility are served one slice at a time. I picked up my phone and texted Lily, still on for Sunday dinner. Her response came quickly. Victoria's planning a yacht party. Maybe next week? I set down the phone, looking out at the Manhattan skyline from my modest office. Tomorrow, Victoria Shaw would learn exactly who controlled her family's financial future. And my daughter would finally understand that true worth isn't measured in designer labels or social media posts. Sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones you never notice at all. The next morning, I arrived at Morgan Capital's executive floor through my private elevator, dressed in a channel suit that cost more than Victoria's monthly spa budget. My real office, unlike the modest space downstairs, occupied the entire top floor with views of Central Park. Mrs. Shaw and Mr. Shaw have arrived, my executive assistant informed me. They're waiting in the main conference room. Mrs. Shaw has already demanded to speak to Caroline Morgan 3 times. Let them wait another 10 minutes, I said, reviewing their complete financial portfolio. The numbers were worse than even I had expected. Their luxury real estate empire was built on shifting sand, propped up by loans and creative accounting. When I finally entered the conference room, Victoria was mid-rant. Absolutely insane. That nobody from yesterday actually dared to. She stopped abruptly, staring at me in confusion. Mark stood up so quickly he nearly knocked over his chair. Olivia, what are you doing here? I took my seat at the head of the table, enjoying the way Victoria's eyes darted between my outfit and my position in the room. I believe you wanted to meet Caroline Morgan. Victoria's perfectly glossed lips parted in shock. No, that's impossible. I assure you it's quite possible, I said, opening their file. Now, shall we discuss how you've been systematically destroying the company my money built? Mark sank back into his chair. All this time? Yes, I nodded. While you were telling our daughter how her mother could never understand your new lifestyle, I was actually financing it. Victoria's face had gone from shock to calculating. This is why you've been so interested in Lily lately. You've been planning this. Actually, I corrected her. I've been trying to protect my daughter from your materialistic influence. The same daughter you told last week that her mother's background was tragically common. I never. Victoria started, but I cut her off by sliding printouts of her text messages across the table. My favorite is this one. I pointed to a highlighted section. Darling, you can't invite your mother to the charity gala. What would people think? She shops at department stores. I smiled thinly. I am controlling interest in that department store chain, by the way. Mark leaned forward. Olivia, we can explain. Explain what? I interrupted. How you've borrowed against every property you own. How you've used my company's money to fund Victoria's shopping sprees while telling our daughter I couldn't afford to send her to summer camp. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. What do you want? Initially, I wanted to protect my daughter from your toxic influence. Now, I pushed another document forward. I want you to explain to Lily exactly how you've been living beyond your means on loans from her struggling mother's company. You can't do this, Victoria whispered. The social embarrassment would be terrible. I agreed. Almost as terrible as telling a 16-year-old girl to be ashamed of her mother's work ethic. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Mom, Victoria says their bank meeting is running long. Can't make lunch. Sorry. I held up my phone. Interesting. She's still lying to both of us. Mark's face had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. What are our options? That depends, I said, on whether you're ready to start living in reality. Your development project needs another $50 million to complete. Victoria's spending needs to be cut by 80%. And most importantly, I fixed them both with a stern look. The campaign to turn my daughter against me ends today. Victoria's mascara was starting to run. Everything we've built was built with my money, I reminded her. Money I earned starting from nothing, the same background you've taught my daughter to despise. I stood up, smoothing my designer suit. You have 24 hours to decide. Either accept the new terms, including financial oversight and mandatory counseling for this family situation, or I call in all the loans. You would destroy us. Victoria's voice was barely audible. No, Victoria, you've done that yourself. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild with integrity. I gathered my papers. Oh, and one more thing. Lily will be attending Sunday dinner with me tomorrow. I suggest you both come as well. It's time for some honest conversation. As I reached the door, Mark called out, When did you become this? I turned back. I was always this, Mark. You just never bothered to look past the surface. Rather like your wife. Walking back to my private office, I texted Lily, Tomorrow's family dinner is non-negotiable. We need to talk about truth, appearances, and what really matters in life. Her reply came quickly. Victoria says we have plans. I smiled, typing back, Ask Victoria about her meeting with Caroline Morgan. Then decide for yourself what matters more. designer labels, or honest relationships. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in the revealing of power, but in the teaching of values. Tomorrow, my daughter would learn that her poor mother had built an empire. But more importantly, she'd learn that true worth isn't found in bank accounts or social status. It's found in the strength to remain true to yourself, even when others try to shame you for where you came from. The Sunday dinner I arranged wasn't at a five-star restaurant or a private club. Instead, I reserved the back room at Romano's, the small Italian place where I used to take Lily for birthday dinners before Victoria entered our lives. When my daughter arrived with Mark and Victoria, her expression shifted from embarrassment to confusion as she saw me waiting in a simple sweater and jeans, not unlike the outfits Victoria had mocked. "Mom?" Lily hesitated. "Victoria said you wanted to meet about some business thing." "Sit down, sweetheart," I said gently. "It's time for some truth." Victoria's designer dress looked absurdly out of place among Romano's checkered tablecloths. She hadn't even tried to hide her disdain when entering, but now her face held something closer to fear. "Should I start?" I asked them, "or would you like to explain to my daughter why her stepmother's credit cards stopped working this morning?" Lily's head snapped up. "What?" "Your mother," Mark said quietly, "is Caroline Morgan." The silence that followed was broken only by the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen. I watched understanding dawn slowly on my daughter's face. "The Caroline Morgan, of Morgan Capital?" Lily turned to Victoria. "The one you're always talking about trying to meet. The one who's been funding your father's real estate projects," I added. "And yes, the same one who's been watching you slowly adopt Victoria's attitudes about money and status." Lily's face flushed. "But you always said you were just an investment advisor." "I am an advisor," I smiled. "I advise my own company. I just chose not to flaunt it." "Unlike some people," Victoria muttered, then flinched as Mark shot her a warning look. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lily's voice cracked. All this time while Victoria was saying. "While I was saying what?" Victoria challenged, a hint of her old arrogance returning. "That your mother's lifestyle was embarrassing. That she couldn't provide the opportunities we could." "Actually," I interrupted, "I think it's time you told Lily exactly who has been providing those opportunities. Over plates of pasta that cost less than Victoria's manicures, the whole story came out. The loans, the overspending, the systematic campaign to make my daughter ashamed of her roots. So the yacht, the vacations, everything." Lily's eyes were wide. "It was all because of Mom." "Not exactly," I corrected. "It was all borrowed money spent to create an illusion of success. Real success, Lily, is being able to walk into a room full of designer labels in your department store clothes and know your worth doesn't depend on anyone's approval." Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a paper napkin. "I suppose you're going to take it all away now." "No," I said simply. "I'm going to teach you how to earn it properly, starting with how you treat people, all people." Lily reached for my hand across the table. "Mom, I'm so sorry. The things I said were influenced by someone who needed to learn that money doesn't equal class." I squeezed her hand. "But now we all have a chance to do better." Looking around the table, at my humbled ex-husband, my shaken daughter, and my suddenly silent ex-wife, I felt no triumph, only hope for change. From now on, I announce, Sunday dinners are mandatory. Here at Romano's. No designer clothes, no pretense, just family being honest with each other. "But what will people think?" Victoria whispered. "They'll think," I replied, "that Caroline Morgan, with all her wealth and power, chooses to eat at a family restaurant with checkered tablecloths. And maybe they'll learn what I've known all along, that true class has nothing to do with where you eat, what you wear, or how much money you have." I raised my water glass. To new beginnings, and to teaching the next generation that success isn't about looking rich, it's about being rich in character. Lily lifted her glass, tears in her eyes. "To my mom, who taught me the best lesson of all, never judge a book by its cover, especially if the book owns the whole bookstore. Sometimes the greatest power lies not in what you can take away, but in what you can teach others to value." And as I watched Victoria awkwardly try to twirl spaghetti with her $1,000 manicure, I knew the real lessons were just beginning. The service corridor smelled of fresh linens and cleaning supplies. Around me, actual staff members hurried past with garment bags and flower arrangements, none realizing that the woman in an understated navy dress signed their paychecks. A young employee noticed my hesitation near the kitchen entrance. "First time working a plaza wedding?" she asked kindly. "Something like that." I adjusted my simple pearl earrings, the same ones I wore while signing the acquisition papers for this hotel last month. "The Thompson wedding is brutal," she whispered. "The bride's stepmother already made 2 servers cry during the rehearsal dinner." "Ah yes, Patricia Thompson, formerly Patricia Warner, who'd swept in and married my ex-husband James barely 6 months after our divorce was finalized. The same woman who'd spent the past 5 years trying to erase any trace of me from my daughter Emma's life." The kitchen was organized chaos. In the center stood Patricia, resplendent in a designer dress that probably cost more than my first car. She was berating a flower arranger about the shade of roses in the centerpieces. "Is there a problem?" I asked mildly. Patricia spun around, her professionally highlighted hair swishing. "Who are you? Where's your uniform?" "Sarah Anderson, Emma's mother." Recognition flickered across her face, followed by a practiced sneer. "Oh yes. Emma mentioned you might come early too. Help." She looked me up and down. The staff entrance was clearly marked. "They were very helpful with directions," I said, enjoying her confusion at my lack of embarrassment, though I had hoped to see my daughter before the ceremony. "Emma's quite busy with important guests." Patricia's smile was razor sharp. "We wouldn't want to overwhelm her with additional complications." I thought of my daughter, but called me in tears last week about Patricia taking over the entire wedding planning. "I understand perfectly." The kitchen doors swung open as James walked in, still handsome in his tuxedo but softer around the middle than when we'd met in college. He stopped short at the sight of me. "Sarah, what are you doing back here?" "Just following the seating arrangement your wife designed," I said pleasantly. Very thoughtful of her to consider my position. James at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Patricia, we discussed this. Sarah should be seated with family." "Darling," Patricia's voice dripped honey, "we agreed to maintain certain standards for Emma's special day. After all, we wouldn't want to make our guests uncomfortable." 15 years ago, her words would have cut deep. Now they barely registered. I learned that true power didn't need to announce itself. "Mom." Emma stood in the doorway, beautiful in her wedding dress. My heart clenched. She looked so much like I had at her age, before life had taught me its hardest lessons. "What are you doing in the kitchen?" She turned to her stepmother. "Patricia, why isn't my mother in the bridal suite?" "Just a small misunderstanding, darling," Patricia said smoothly. "Your mother arrived early, and you know how confusion can happen with the staff entrance." I watched my daughter's face cloud over. "This isn't what we discussed. Mom is supposed to be." "It's fine, sweetheart," I interrupted gently. "Your stepmother is right about maintaining standards." I checked my watch, a subtle Cartier that cost more than Patricia's entire wedding ensemble. "The guests will be arriving soon." "But Mom." Though finished getting ready, I squeezed her hand. "This is your day. Don't let anything spoil it." As Emma reluctantly left, Patricia's triumph was palpable. "Well, now that's settled. The staff dining room is through those doors. I'm sure you'll be quite comfortable there." I caught James watching me, perhaps remembering the young woman who'd once believed in his promises of forever, the woman who'd supported his career while raising their daughter and building something of her own in secret. "James," I said softly, "you might want to remind your wife about the importance of kindness. Sometimes the people we dismiss turn out to be more important than we imagine." He opened his mouth, but Patricia cut him off. "James, darling, the photographer needs you. Sarah, I'm sure you can find your way to your designated area." I watched them leave, Patricia's hand possessively on James's arm. Through the kitchen windows, I could see guests beginning to arrive. Manhattan's elite, all here to witness the joining of 2 prestigious families. If only they knew that the help they were so eager to hide owned not just this hotel, but the entire block of premium real estate it sat on. But patience had taught me that the sweetest victories come to those who wait. And as I heard Patricia complaining about the champagne service to an increasingly nervous catering manager, I knew my moment would come. After all, I hadn't spent the last 15 years building an empire just to be relegated to the kitchen at my own daughter's wedding. Patricia Thompson was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the wrong woman, and I was going to enjoy every minute of it. The wedding ceremony was underway, and from my strategic position near the kitchen, I could observe everything while remaining conveniently invisible to the society crowd. Patricia had orchestrated what she clearly thought was the perfect slight, a mother of the bride, hidden away, unable to participate in her daughter's special day. Through the service doors, I watched Emma exchange vows with David, a genuinely kind young man who, ironically, had made his own fortune much like I had, starting from nothing. Patricia had initially opposed the match until discovering his family's recent wealth. The thought made me smile. More champagne, Mrs. Anderson. Claire, the kind server from earlier, appeared at my elbow. Over the past hour, the staff had gradually realized I wasn't quite what I seemed, especially after they noticed I knew intimate details about the hotel's operations. Thank you, Claire. How's the new break room renovation coming along? She blinked in surprise. You know about that. I know many things, I replied, taking a sip, including how Patricia threatened to have you fired for accidentally spilling water during the rehearsal dinner. Claire's face flushed. She demanded to speak to the owner. Yes, I imagine she did. I checked my phone, noting an email from my CEO assistant confirming that the Thompson family's recent loan application to our banking division had been flagged for review. Interesting timing, considering the extravagance of this wedding. The ceremony concluded and guests began flowing into the grand ballroom. I watched Patricia work the room, playing the perfect society hostess while carefully steering influential guests away from any mention of the bride's biological mother. Mom. Emma appeared beside me, her face worried. You shouldn't be back here. Your seat should be at the family table. Actually, Patricia's voice cut in as she approached us. The seating arrangements are final. We wouldn't want to disturb the careful planning. I saw tears forming in my daughter's eyes, and something in me shifted. I planned to wait, to let this play out gradually, but seeing Emma's pain changed everything. Patricia, I said calmly, perhaps we should discuss this in private. There's nothing to discuss, she smiled tightly. The staff dining room is perfectly adequate. Mrs. Thompson, Claire interrupted, appearing with perfect timing. The owner would like a word about the payment situation. Patricia's smile faltered slightly. What payment situation? The bounced checks, Claire said innocently, from the last 3 events your family hosted here. The color drained from Patricia's perfectly made-up face. There must be some mistake. My husband handles all the payments. Yes, I said softly. James always did have trouble managing money. It's why I handled our finances during our marriage. Patricia's eyes narrowed. What would you know about? Mom, Emma cut in. What's going on? I straightened my simple pearl necklace. Patricia, would you like to explain to my daughter why you're so concerned about the owner discovering your family's financial difficulties, or shall I? I don't know what you're talking about, she hissed, but her hands were shaking slightly. The Thompson family has been maintaining appearances by borrowing heavily against James's declining investment portfolio, I said calmly. This wedding alone cost more than their liquid assets could cover. Isn't that right, Patricia? How dare you, she started, but I held up my hand. The Grande Plaza's owner takes financial responsibility very seriously, as do all the properties under Anderson Hospitality Group's umbrella. Understanding dawned on Patricia's face, followed quickly by horror. Anderson, hospitality, including this hotel, the country club where you host your charity events, and yes, the bank currently reviewing your family's loan applications. I smiled. I've been meaning to introduce myself properly. Sarah Anderson, CEO and majority shareholder. Emma's eyes widened. Mom, I'm sorry I kept this from you, sweetheart. I wanted to give you space to build a relationship with your stepmother without complications. I turned back to Patricia, who had gone deathly pale. Though I admit, watching you try to hide me in the kitchen of my own hotel was not part of the plan. The sound of breaking glass made us all turn. James stood there, a shattered champagne flute at his feet, staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. Sarah, he whispered, you're the owner. Among other things, I said quietly, though perhaps we should discuss the $300,000 in bounced checks before we talk about ownership. Patricia swayed slightly. This is impossible. Actually, I replied, it's just good business. Now, shall we discuss how to handle this situation with dignity, or would you prefer to continue treating your daughter's mother like the help? The power dynamic had shifted so completely, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. But as I watched tears of humiliation fill Patricia's eyes, I remembered every slight, every attempt to diminish my role in Emma's life, every condescending remark about my supposed status. The time for patience was over. Now it was time for lessons to be learned, and I had 15 years of them to teach. The transformation of Patricia Thompson over the next hour was more satisfying than any corporate takeover I ever orchestrated. Gone was the society queen who tried to banish me to the kitchen. In her place stood a woman whose perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide her mounting panic. "You own everything," she whispered, clutching her champagne glass like a lifeline. "Not everything," I said mildly. "Just the Plaza Hotel Group, the Windsor Country Club where you host your charity events, and have pause for effect. That lovely summer house you're so proud of in the Hamptons. The rental agreement comes up for review next month, I believe." James sat heavily in a nearby chair, his face ashen. "All these years, while I thought you were struggling, while you thought I was nothing," I finished for him. "Yes, it's amazing what a woman can accomplish when men underestimate her." Emma stepped forward, tears threatening to spill. "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me?" "Because I wanted you to grow up understanding the value of work, not privilege." I touched her cheek gently. "Though I must admit, watching your stepmother redirect my wedding gift to the service entrance was not quite what I had in mind." Patricia's face went from pale to crimson. "That gift, the anonymous donation that paid for the entire wedding, was from me?" "Yes," I smiled. "Consider it my last lesson in humility." The wedding planner appeared at the door, nervous about the delay. I checked my watch. "Well, I believe we have a ceremony to attend. Unless," I raised an eyebrow at Patricia, "you'd still prefer I dine with the staff." "Sarah, please," James started, but I held up a hand. "Save it, James. This isn't about revenge. It's about respect." I turned to Patricia. "You have two choices. Either I announce my ownership of your favorite properties right now, very publicly, or you spend the next year proving you can change." "Change how?" Her voice was barely audible. "Start by apologizing to every staff member you've berated today. Then set up a foundation, with your money, not mine, to support service workers' education. Show me you learned something besides the fact that wealth doesn't equal worth." Emma surprised me by stepping forward. "I want to help with that foundation, Mom." I should have stood up to this behavior long ago. I studied my daughter's face, seeing the strong woman she'd become despite the privilege that could have spoiled her. "I'm proud of you, sweetheart." As the wedding resumed, with me in my rightful place in the front row, I watched Patricia awkwardly make amends to the staff she terrorized earlier. James kept shooting me wondering glances, perhaps finally seeing the woman he'd undervalued for so long. Later, during the reception, Emma found me on the terrace. "You know what's funny, Mom? All those times Patricia bragged about her connections and looked down on your small business consulting job. Sometimes the best power is the kind you don't flaunt," I said, hugging her. "Remember that, sweetheart. True class isn't about what you own. It's about how you treat people." As I watched my daughter dance with her new husband, I thought about the young woman I've been, cleaning hotel rooms while studying business at night. The woman who turned heartbreak into motivation and rejection into empire. Patricia approached hesitantly. "I've been horrible, haven't I?" "Self-awareness is a good first step," I replied. "What matters is what you do next." She squared her shoulders. "I'd like to start that foundation, if you'll help me do it right." I smiled, remembering another society woman who'd once looked down on me. I'd bought her company too, but more importantly, I'd never become her. "First lesson in humility starts tomorrow, Patricia. 7 a.m. in the hotel kitchen. Wear comfortable shoes." As the night wound down, I took one last look around the grand ballroom, my ballroom, and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't showing people how powerful you are. It's teaching them why they were wrong to abuse that power in the first place. After all, true success isn't just about building an empire. It's about building a legacy of respect, one humbling lesson at a time. I sat in my Manhattan office, watching the Huntington Quarterly Board meeting livestream on my private server. Rebecca was there, of course, draped in jewelry that technically belonged to my company's collateral holdings, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on my ex-husband James's arm. "The Huntington Group remains strong," James said, though I could see the tension in his shoulders. "Our legacy of excellence continues to." "Ms. Walker," my assistant's voice came through the intercom. The latest Huntington financial reports are ready for your review. I muted the live stream. Thank you, Sarah. And the trust fund documentation. All prepared. Would you like me to begin the process of freezing the accounts? I thought about last week's charity gala where Rebecca had loudly informed anyone who would listen that my daughter Katie's unfortunate small-town manners must come from my side of the family. Not yet, I said. Let's see how tomorrow's lunch goes first. The lunch in question was at Le Cirque, Rebecca's choice, naturally. She'd insisted on meeting to discuss Katie's upcoming debutante ball, though my daughter had made it clear she'd rather do community service than participate in what she called that antiquated parade of privilege. I arrived early, dressed in what Rebecca would consider quaint business attire from a department store. She was already there, holding court at the best table, wearing an outfit that cost more than most people's monthly salary. Charlotte, she said my name as if it were something distasteful she'd found on her shoe. So glad you could fit this into your, what is it you do again? Something with numbers. Investment management, I replied mildly, taking my seat. Small firm, nothing you'd have heard of. Rebecca waved her hand dismissively. Well, we need to discuss Katie's presentation to society. The Huntington name demands certain standards. The same standards that have your family's company leveraged to the hilt. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. Excuse me? Nothing, I smiled. Just something I've heard through the investment community grapevine. Whatever rumors you've heard are nonsense, she snapped. The Huntington Group is an institution. Now, about Katie's dress, I've taken the liberty of selecting several options from designers who understand our position. Our position, I repeated. You mean your position as the second wife trying to erase any trace of the first family? Rebecca's face flushed. I'm trying to help Katie overcome her limited background. Really, Charlotte, you should be grateful. After all, what do you know about proper society? You're from, she shuddered delicately, Nebraska. I thought about the files sitting on my desk, about the quiet way I'd been acquiring Huntington debt over the past 5 years, watching as Rebecca's spending and James's mismanagement drove the company closer to the edge. Tell me, Rebecca, how are the renovations on the Hampton house coming along? The one you put a second mortgage on last month. She froze, her water glass halfway to her lips. How did you know about that? Like I said, investment community grapevine. We hear all sorts of interesting things, like how the Huntington Group's stock has been artificially inflated for the past 3 quarters. James, she called out, and I turned to see my ex-husband approaching our table. Perfect timing, as always. Charlotte, he nodded stiffly. I didn't expect to see you here. Your wife insisted, I said. Something about saving our daughter from her mother's common influence. Now, let's be reasonable, James began, but Rebecca cut him off. She's been making ridiculous insinuations about our finances, she hissed. Tell her she's wrong. I opened my briefcase and withdrew a single document. Actually, I have something for both of you. Consider it my contribution to Katie's debutante planning. James took the paper, his face going pale as he read. This is a notice of call on the Huntington Group's primary loan facility. I confirmed. Effective immediately. Rebecca grabbed the document. Walker Capital Partners. I've never even heard of. She stopped, looking at me with dawning horror. No. Yes, I said simply. That small investment firm I mentioned, it's been quietly acquiring Huntington debt for years, along with the mortgages on your properties, the lions on your art collection, and the loans covering your personal spending. This is impossible, James whispered. The Huntington Group has been in my family for generations, and it took your new wife less than 5 years to spend its way into my control. I signaled for the check. Now, about Katie's debutante ball, I think we should respect her wishes to skip it. After all, proper society isn't about appearances, it's about substance. Rebecca's hands were shaking. You planned this, all these years while I was calling you a nobody. I was becoming somebody who could teach you both about humility. I finished for her. The question is, are you ready to learn? I stood up, smoothing my cheap blazer. We'll have a proper meeting tomorrow at my office. Bring your financial advisors. Oh, and Rebecca, I paused. That necklace you're wearing? It's part of the collateral holdings now. I'll have someone pick it up this afternoon. As I walked out of Le Cirque, my phone buzzed with a text from Katie. Mom, Rebecca just called in tears about some meeting tomorrow. What did you do? I smiled, typing back. Just reminded some people that you can take the girl out of small town Nebraska, but you can't take away her ability to build an empire. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemies, it's in making them realize they never really knew their victim at all. The next morning, I arrived at Walker Capital's main office via my private elevator. Unlike the Huntington's ostentatious downtown headquarters with its marble and gold, my building was sleek, modern, and understated. Power doesn't need to announce itself. They're waiting in the main conference room, my assistant informed me. Mrs. Huntington has already demanded to speak to the real owner 3 times. How's her mood? I asked, reviewing the complete financial portfolio I was about to present. She took off her jewelry when asked, but she's wearing what appears to be a new Chanel suit. Bought with credit, no doubt, I murmured. And James? Silent. Pale. Their financial advisor looks like he might be sick. I smiled, remembering all the times Rebecca had commented on my modest lifestyle at school events and family gatherings. Must be so difficult for Katie, having a mother who shops at Macy's, she'd said at last year's Christmas party. Walking into the conference room, I saw Rebecca's eyes widen at my Armani suit, one that cost more than her entire wardrobe but had never seen the light of day until now. Charlotte, James stood up stiffly. We've been reviewing the documentation. And it's clearly a mistake, Rebecca interrupted. The Huntington Group has dozens of investment partners. You can't possibly. Uncontrolling interest in your debt? I sat down at the head of the table. Actually, I can, and I do. Shall we review exactly how that happened? I pressed a button, and the wall screen came to life with a detailed flowchart of the Huntington Group's finances over the past 5 years. It started here. I pointed to a date. When you decided to renovate the Manhattan townhouse without proper capital, that loan came through a subsidiary of my firm. Then came the yacht, the art collection, the private jet membership. Standard business expenses, Rebecca protested weakly. Really? Is that what you call the private shopping spree in Paris last month? Or the unauthorized withdrawals from Katie's trust fund to cover your gambling debts? James's head snapped up. What gambling debts? Rebecca's perfect composure cracked slightly. Darling, I can explain. Explain how you've been stealing from my daughter? James's voice rose. Charlotte, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. I cut him off. You were too busy letting your wife erase all traces of your first family to notice she was erasing your fortune too. I pulled out another document. This is a complete restructuring proposal. You have 2 choices. Either accept my terms, including financial oversight and the immediate cessation of all unauthorized spending, or I call in all the loans. Today. Rebecca's hands trembled as she reached for the paper. This is ridiculous. You're just a small-town nobody who got lucky with a good divorce settlement. Actually, I smiled. I'm a small-town nobody who turned that settlement into an empire while you were busy playing society queen with borrowed money. I pressed another button, and the screen showed photos of Rebecca's recent purchases, all tagged with their prices and the overdrawn accounts used to pay for them. That's private information, she gasped. No, that's collateral documentation. I corrected her. And speaking of collateral, we'll need the keys to the Hampton house by Friday. The new terms require liquidation of non-essential assets. James leaned forward. Charlotte, surely we can work something out. For Katie's sake. For Katie's sake? I raised an eyebrow. The same daughter your wife has been trying to turn against me for years? The one whose trust fund is now nearly empty. Rebecca's perfect makeup couldn't hide her growing panic. I was only trying to give her the life she deserves. No, I said firmly. You were trying to erase her mother's influence. Well, congratulations. Now she'll get to see exactly what that influence is worth. I stood up, straightening my designer suit. The restructuring terms are non-negotiable. You have 24 hours to decide. Oh, and Rebecca. I paused at the door. That new Chanel suit, added to the list of unauthorized purchases we'll be discussing. As I left them with their ashen-faced financial advisor, my phone buzzed with a message from Katie. Mom, is it true? About what Rebecca did with my trust fund. We'll talk tonight, sweetheart, I typed back. Over dinner at that little diner you love, the one Rebecca says is beneath the Huntington name. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't in the taking, but in the revealing, in showing people that the power they thought they held was always an illusion. A week later, I sat in my office reviewing the latest Huntington Group restructuring reports when my assistant announced an unexpected visitor, Rebecca Huntington. Gone was the designer wardrobe and perfectly coiffed hair. Instead, she wore a simple dress that actually suited her better than all the luxury brands she charged to my accounts. "Your security team made me surrender my handbag," she said, her voice lacking its usual condescension. "It's a fake anyway. Turns out most of my designer collection was counterfeit." "I know," I replied. "The forensic accountants found the receipts from Canal Street. Quite the elaborate scheme you had going, buying fakes while charging the real prices to the company accounts." She sank into a chair, deflated. "James filed for divorce this morning." "I heard. Right after the board voted to remove him as CEO." I closed my laptop. "The interim management team seems competent. They're selling the Hampton house," she whispered, "and the art collection. Everything I built." "Everything you borrowed," I corrected. "There's a difference." Tears smeared her mascara. "Why are you doing this? Is it revenge for how I treated you? For what I said about your background?" "Actually, it's about protecting what's mine, including my daughter's future." I slid a folder across the desk. "Speaking of which, here's the documentation about Katie's trust fund." Rebecca's hands shook as she opened it. "I can explain." "Save it. The money has been restored, with interest. Not from the Huntington accounts, but from my personal funds." I leaned forward. "Because that's what real wealth is, Rebecca. It's not about spending money you don't have. It's about building something lasting." "How did you do it?" she asked quietly. "Build all this from nothing." "I didn't start with nothing. I started with determination, intelligence, and a small-town work ethic you spent years mocking." I stood up and walked to the window overlooking Manhattan. "While you were busy trying to erase my existence from the Huntington legacy, I was creating my own." My phone buzzed with a text from Katie. "Had lunch with Dad. He's a mess." Rebecca moved out of the townhouse. "Your stepdaughter Caroline called me yesterday," I told Rebecca. "Apparently, she's horrified to learn that her trust fund is empty too." Rebecca's face crumpled. "I never meant to get caught, to face consequences. That's the problem with living beyond your means. Eventually, reality catches up." "What happens now?" she asked. "Now, you start over. Get a job. Live within your means." I returned to my desk. "The restructuring team has arranged a severance package. It's not much, but it's more than I had when I started." "When you were just a small-town nobody?" She gave a bitter laugh. "Exactly. Turns out being a nobody teaches you valuable lessons about becoming somebody." My assistant appeared at the door. "Ms. Walker, Katie's here." My daughter entered, looking between Rebecca and me with curious eyes. Gone was the designer clothing Rebecca had insisted she wear. Instead, she was dressed in simple elegance that spoke of confidence rather than show. "Mom, are we still on for dinner? That new chef at our diner is amazing." Rebecca stood up, clutching her folder. "Katie, I'm sorry. For everything." "I know," Katie said quietly. "Maybe someday we can talk about it, when you figured out who you are without the Huntington name." After Rebecca left, Katie turned to me. "Did you always know how it would end?" "I knew that truth has a way of surfacing," I replied. "And that real power doesn't need designer labels to prove itself." We headed out to our favorite diner, where the waitress knew our orders by heart and the coffee came in thick ceramic mugs instead of fine china. "You know what's funny, Mom?" Katie said as we settled into our usual booth. "All those years Rebecca spent trying to make me ashamed of our small-town background. And she never realized that watching you build something real was worth more than all her fake designer bags." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand, remembering the young woman I'd been, the one Rebecca had tried so hard to erase. That woman hadn't needed a prestigious name or borrowed luxury. She'd had something better, the determination to build an empire strong enough to teach her daughter what real success looks like. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying your enemy's world. It's in showing them that your world was always stronger than theirs.